You should probably introduce them, but I'll just recap that last
Okay.
meeting. We talked a lot about perhaps an integration with upload CSV file using the TQuip export, and we asked ArcWeb to take a look into what capabilities it might be able to come up with. So, did everyone get the document you sent to everyone on the committee, Saran?
I did. Yep.
Because hopefully everyone has that to refer to, and I'll let Sarah Ann introduce our guests from ArcWeb and let them take it away.
Fantastic. So from ArcWeb, I'll go across in the order that I have you all. We have Chris Sarah, who is their head guru. I think president, CEO. I don't know your exact title. Head guru works. I'm sure that's what you have on your
CEO.
business card. Perfect. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Herbert is Herbert. I don't know your exact title either. Tech person.
Project manager. Yeah.
Perfect. Exactly. Yes, this is how I roll. I like to just make up my own titles as we go. And then Nadia is all things technical that I don't know and message her and say, "Oh my gosh," and solves problems from there. And your exact title is
uh principal consultant. And but anyone that you would have generated for me is impressive enough.
sure. There you go. I love it. So I have the opportunity to meet with them monthly. We established the list of priorities. We've chatted about this as a committee in terms of priorities that we have, things that we're looking at long term. And then, as Dr. Simone mentioned last month, we discussed that it would be good to get everybody kind of together and talk about what's been done, where we are, and then forward looking. I did forward the document that Nadia sent over. So, I had asked Dr. Erickson to provide the template for a TQuip upload so that then we could look at it and kind of say, how close are we from what people already are doing to what what CWIS or excuse me, what SID has in it. So then, I mean, I know some of the fields we don't need, we get that, like, they're not all applicable to us. But in terms of those that are, how many of them line up with things that we need and how can we do sort of that crosswalk? Um, and then from there, hopefully we can get a solid CSV template that we can get people to download and then upload in and get that technology built. I know Dr. Dobin, I believe, and Dr. Antipa have done that in the past in SID in kind of a different iteration of this database. So there's some of that built in, but I don't know if it still works, and I don't know exactly how that all is going to function in current version. But at least there's some some history of it. So that's a good sign that it could be a good potential in the future. So I guess I will turn it to our ArcWeb team. You guys can give us an update and tell us what you're thinking about moving forward. And
Thanks.
thank you for being here.
For, yeah, first of all, just want to say thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here. We're really excited about the opportunity to participate, help advise the entire group, and share more about what we've been working on. I I think we should, it sounds like we should jump right into the file format discussion and whatnot. So I will pass it to Nadia since she's done the analysis and that's the hot topic. And then we can also come back and give an overall update as well. Does that order work? Okay. All right, great.
So just to clarify, Chris, you want me just to discuss the data, the TQIP versus SID. So I looked at the template, the CSV, and then I looked at the data model as it currently is and the code that Jonathan handed over. And the document simply points out all the data fields that are missing. It seems that the SID data model is not nearly as flushed out in some ways, but much more flushed out in other ways. The how to get it to a more, I take it you want to import that data, how to get it to that state or export that data?
No, so there are, and I'm sorry I've been so remiss lately. Anyway, the direct match fields are particularly the ones that we want to bring in. So those are some of the ones that are a little bit more challenging to fill out. So we're not looking to add 108 fields that don't exist in SID currently that exist in TQIP. We are not looking to add those to SID. What we're looking at is how many of the fields currently exist in TQIP. And the other piece to TQIP is, I didn't see the file that Everett sent, but the way the TQIP data gets spit out, it's possible to rearrange those fields. So I know that Jonathan had created a CSV template for upload, and you could essentially organize the export from the TQIP data to match that sort of upload file to make it easier. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay.
Organize
So
the field mapping.
let me try to say it back to you. You are looking to get as much TQIP data in, starting with the fields that are exactly matching.
Correct. And then look at these 16 of 145 fields that may be similarly matching, depending on what kind of a lift they are to put in and what kind of data already exists in SID that they overlap. So, for example, things like steroid use, anticoagulant use, things like that. So there's some overlap there. But TQIP has very distinct data that SID does not, that we are not trying to import. And the SID data, some of the SID data does not exist in TQIP, which is, again, why we can't just use TQIP to answer a lot of these research issues.
Got it.
Our
Okay,
goal
so
is just
you're
to
trying.
cut down on some of the manual data entry by using data we're already collecting at our hospitals. And so, as Dr. Dobin said, we're just trying to use those fields that already exist in both places.
Okay, got it. So do all these hospital systems produce this TQIP data?
Yes. If you're part of
So
it, yeah.
would it make
Let's
sense
clarify,
then?
all of the domestic ones do. Some of the international ones and the international people aren't necessarily doing that, but they probably have some system whereby they can do it. They just aren't required to do it like the US based hospitals are.
Okay.
Right. The US based hospitals that are American College of Surgeon verified are mandated to do it.
So if you know all the hospitals can produce TQIP data, what you're really looking for is for a take this TQIP export, do something to it, shrink it, and then put it into SID in such a way that it currently fits.
Well, I could even do one better for you, which is all of the hospitals that collect this data have a system that generates reports. And so the TQIP report is a pre-constructed report. But I can actually go to my system and say, I want you to produce this field, I want you to produce how many overlapping fields were there? 21. I want you to produce a report with 21 fields in this specific order and spit it to me in a CSV file.
Okay. You were just using TQIP as this is everything. This is the grand max.
This is what we collect.
I see. Okay. So the task is really then to, based on the TQIP cross SID, find the ones that are the easiest to fit in, produce a CSV that is
Yes.
those, and then you can give it to your whoever is exporting it.
Correct. And I actually think that we could build that CSV and set the template as such.
Yes.
For the other
So
sites, so that it's easier for us to upload and give them the
yes.
framework.
Yes. We could do that. That's all I had.
So can we just talk about the 16 of the because the one that's interesting to
21.
me is the partial match.
The partials might be harder, actually.
Well, yes, but maybe some of them, and I guess maybe that's a deep dive, right? That we look and say, like, because, and again, some of it may be how the report is generated too. I know, like, I've seen some of this data that's generated. Um, Actually, you know what? I might be able to hold on 1 second. Um,
Sorry, my
let me.
comment there was more to just say, like, if there's no match, it might just be easier. It's easier to add it, potentially, than to, figure out what a new mapping should be. That's all. But we can provide like a full estimate um, of exactly like what it would take, so we can make a
Yeah, I
better
think
decision about that.
for the 16, it would just require a little bit more investigation of what it is trying to produce, what is it is assuming is in those fields, and what Sid is assuming in those fields. And you may find that some of them is just a mapping, but others are further than you think. And we can offer, you know, um, a level of effort of translating between the two.
Yeah. Um, Sorry, I'm just trying to pull something up really quickly, see if I can't. It'll work. Just have to hide some. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if I can. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Are you guys able to see my screen? Yeah. So
It's
like
just
some of
starting.
this um
It's black.
it's black. Okay, 1 second, let's try this again. My super impressive desktop at work is out of memory. Um this helps. Is it still black?
Yes,
Yeah.
still black.
Okay. All right. Forget it. All I was going to show you was that sometimes the like the comorbids and stuff like that get spit out all in one field, and that might be really hard to parse out for some of that stuff, as opposed to a distinct a distinct uni value per field, like length of stay or date of admission or date of discharge or something like that.
Like the
I
problem
also
list.
think I was interested that operative details had a direct match, but that's probably something we still want to enter manually, I would think, because there can be a lot of incorrect data about, and it might be different procedures as well. That's probably something we'd want to keep manual. Don't you agree,
Yeah, and
Andy?
there's going to be a lot of error with that too, Greg,
Yep. Oh yeah.
because the TQIP data pulls by ICD-9 and CPT code, and there's a lot of variation in that CPT code. So I don't think you would want to. I don't think you'd want to pull that. I mean, the things to me that are super interesting are length of stay, ICU length of stay, vent days. There's a couple things along those lines. The problem with those are they're 90 days behind. So, and that's the other thing that we're going to have to sort of figure out too, is if there's a partial entry already. So let's say there's a date of birth and an MRN, to making sure that those match when they import, because there might be data that's more real time captured in there. So, like a date of admission, a date of surgery, some of the surgical details may be already in there in SID prior to some of the import, because the timing of the import is so delayed because of the data extraction on the back end from the registrars. Does that make sense?
Maybe there's a way when you import it and the file's already there. So let's say I have a patient, I operate on them, I put in their identifier, I put in the operative details, and then whenever I get my registry data, I import. And then when you do the import, you can see a side by side of the old data and the new data you're importing and decide which ones you want to go with in case there is some discrepancy.
That's the way the old system used to work. It used to have like, it was like blue if it was right and red if it wasn't, or something. If there wasn't a match, and you could just choose to delete line by line the ones that matched and the ones that didn't.
I don't know what's going on with my Zoom. It like literally won't unmute. And we can do that programmatically too, right? So for some fields, if they don't match, we can omit them and then output a report back, say these were the fields we did not take in for this record,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Andy, forgive me if I don't understand this correctly, but your individual entries into the TQIP database, the time lag for those are under your control, right? It's just a closure of the chart. Now, based on when you put them into the TQIP database, so that the data gets sent off and you get your report back, 6 to 18 months behind the discharge date of the patient. The completion of that TQIP database can be almost real time if you modify your workflow with the registrars. Is that not true?
Yeah, yes. I mean, your registrar report can be, but I don't know about your center, but we're 30 to 60 days behind. And more importantly is this: you have a guy who's in the hospital for 90 days. You operated on hospital day number 3. You really ought to have your operative details about which plate you put on which rib and all that stuff on day 3, because you'd want to do that fairly real time. But
Right.
But you don't know his date of discharge at that point, right? You don't know his number of event days at that point. So that is going to be delayed by at least to the time of discharge plus 30 days. But there's some days, and ideally, if you're doing it right too, you're collecting the in-hospital data before some of that TQIP data gets in.
Right. No, and no matter how good or how fast you are at doing the TQIP database, you're still going to have 2 inputs. You're going to have the manual input to SID, and you're going to have the data dump input to SID. And there's always going to be, in those overlapping fields, some of which, like you said, should be real-time entries or as close to real-time as possible. They're going to definitely have double inputs. So
Yeah.
there has to be some kind of decision tree made on which data point to most rely on.
Yep.
I see what you're saying. Yep, you're right.
Would that decision tree be common, or does it have to always be set at the time of input? Like for instance, like our CRM system, whenever we do imports, asks you right at the time that you're doing the import. Would that be the better flow, or would it be more like a rules-based flow?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand the question, Chris.
Well, I guess would it just be question like there was a side-by-side prompt at the time that you import the file based on what the decision that you need to make about which one takes precedent? Is that correct?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, I what I'm hoping is that there's a way. So when you go through SID, there will be certain fields that will be TQIP identified fields that we'll be able to know, right? We'll know that those are mapped fields. So for example, ventilator days. So, and length of stay, ICU length of stay. Those should be TQIP identified fields, at which point we wouldn't have a manual entry for them. But let's say that for some reason you have a patient that you've started inputting into SID who then doesn't have a TQIP record that matches, or vice versa. There's a TQIP record that doesn't have a matched SID record. That's where we would have to identify that on an import.
I would say probably if there's a discrepancy, going back to a reasonably accurate rules-based, which data point's correct, I would say the real-time data entry is probably going to be the most correct most of the time. So if you had to and maybe having a flag of, okay, there's a discrepancy as far as a data integrity check that we would be able to kind of get flagged or know about would be helpful. But I think that my thoughts are that most of the benefit we're going to get from the data dump from TQIP is just demographics and those basic metrics that every trauma intervention is going to look at: length of stay, ICU length of stay, those kind of things. And then everything that's rib fracture specific, I still think is going to be more accurate real time. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, but again, yeah, the ribs, but there shouldn't be rib fracture specific stuff is not going to be in TQIP anyway.
Other than chest AIS. But yeah, I get what you're saying, Matt. I agree. So let's say I start a manual entry and I put the admission date as today, and then when we run the TQIP report, actually the patient was admitted at 11:59 p.m. last night, and so that should flag as a discrepancy, so you can choose to go with the correct one.
Correct. Yeah, those are the things that I'm talking about. Those are the little discrepancies between with an entry or something that, again, that should be a programmatic thing on the back end that picks that up.
And for that last example, is that one happening at the time that it's input?
Well, so what would happen is,
sorry, that last example actually confused me. I apologize.
Yeah. So what I could see for happening is that, and this is actually something that plagues us in real life, Chris. So like somebody comes in at 11:59, and I start the operation at 11:59, and I finish at 12:35. What day was that operation on? And so from a registry standpoint, which is the TQIP data, it's the 11:59. So let's say today's the 9th. So it's the 8th at 11:59. But when I do a manual entry, I may see it as the 9th at 12:30. And so that little bit can be a little bit of a discrepancy. Again, in something like that, the patient name should be the same, the MRN should be the same, all the other identified date of birth should be the same, right? So all the identifiers shouldn't matter. It's just a couple of fields that might matter, at which point we could pick which one it is. And in that situation, usually you fall to the TQIP data because it's verified with a registrar who does things consistently. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you mind what does verified by a registrar mean exactly?
So what happens is, so I admit a patient to the hospital, they get flagged as a trauma patient, and all of this data that's in this TQIP, there's a person who is basically a chart detective. And they go through the chart and they look at all the documented injuries and they calculate the injury severity score for a patient. And they look at midnight at this night, was the patient on a ventilator? Yes. Were they on a ventilator at midnight the next night? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, that's 2 ventilator days. And they're literally, there's a certification for these people that qualifies them as capable of reviewing for the American College of Surgeons, and they are tested for their legitimacy and their accuracy and everything else. And so a registrar who verifies his stuff is far better than a surgeon who enters things who goes, oh, I think that injury severity score is a 9 when in fact it's a 12. And so
thank you for that. And so that's also why you'd prefer the TQIP data at the end of the day.
Correct, especially in those unique fields, because you're going to have a more consistent data set that's going to be accurate.
Thanks.
And most of that data, direct match data, is very objective binary data. It's not subjective. It's not, oh, well, I think this is a fracture. I don't think it's a very 0 or 1 binary event.
From a interface perspective, right now in SID, there's the file import function. So would this be essentially some way that you expand that functionality right there, or would it be somewhere else?
No, I mean,
Activated
that's what
somewhere
the
else.
file import function was for. The initial file import function had more fields in it. So just to give you the history a little bit, a number of years ago, there were only about 8 of us that were really contributing large sums of data, and we standardized our Excel spreadsheets so that the 8 centers were collecting data the same way. When we went to SID, we were still using those spreadsheets. And so what Jonathan did was he created a spreadsheet for us that was SID specific data. And we would literally just copy the cells out of the spreadsheets that we already had into the SID spreadsheet and upload the data. So essentially what I'm saying is that we could create another TQuip spreadsheet that was exactly aligned the way we wanted it. And we can go to each of these because at each one of these centers, there's a trauma medical director who works with the trauma registry, with these people that are very versed in it, who know how to generate the reports. And if we give them a spreadsheet and say, we want your report to look like this, they can spit a CSV file to look exactly how we're telling them it needs to look, to then make it really easy to upload. So we standardize what we want and tell people to conform to it, and they shouldn't have much trouble on it. And that's what the NTDB, the National Trauma Data Bank, that TQuip report you got is the standardized report. Every center in the country builds that report on a quarterly basis and sends it to the we upload it to the National Trauma Data Bank, and it grabs all those fields and collates everybody's data from every center in the country in all of those fields. And then they print out annual reports on it. And then we can actually get copies of the conglomerate annual data back to us to do research on.
Nadia, do you have any questions about that flow?
No. I think it's worth us investigating a little more to see if we can create this midway just with the fields that exactly overlap, just to show you what it would look like. What do you think about that?
Sure. Go ahead, Greg.
No, I think that's probably the next logical step. Do we have any estimate as to how many hours of work that's going to take you guys?
That's what they'll do and put it together on our spreadsheet. I think we have some placeholders on our current spreadsheet, but it was just kind of a upload CSV file, generic, like it was sort of a placeholder that we weren't totally sure what that was going to look like or necessarily like what that meant, so then we had said, well, the next natural step is to flesh that out and figure out what the real nuts and bolts are, and then we can, these guys can adjust the budget that we've put together, kind of this ongoing proposal we have of projects, so that then we can take it back to the board and have them decide, yes, this is something, this is something we're going to do.
So Nadia and Chris, could I ask a question? Would it be a very quick thing for you just to template a CSV? So let's take the 21 direct match fields, for example, to just say, yeah, if they were in this order, like this in a CSV file, that would be the ideal document to upload. So before we build any of the interface, to just say, yeah, this is what the document would look like. That should be a pretty quick, easy thing for you guys, right?
You mean just no interface, just suck it off of the CSV? Yeah. I
No,
wouldn't
no, no.
say like,
No, just to say, just to, like, you gave me a blank CSV and you said, I want the fields in this order, right? Just these are the fields and this is the order they need to be in. That would be pretty quick and easy, right? I mean, without building the interface that uploads or anything like that, right? That's a pretty simple task. Is that correct?
the interface that does the uploading is the cheapest thing there. Coming up with this and making sure it is actually going to work is if we in order to make sure 100% it will work, we will have to build it out. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is if you gave me a CSV
Yeah.
and said, okay, name, date of birth, the 21 fields, the order that you wanted the 21 fields in, and just send me a file, empty file, that just is basically the fields and what they're titled, okay?
Yep.
Without building the interface, that's pretty quick and easy to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not too hard.
Okay. Because then if you gave any one of us that, we could go back to our registries and say, can you generate this report? Just like this. Because again, there's no point in building an interface if we build the interface to then find out later that we can't get the data. See what I'm getting at?
Yes.
So why don't we start with, can we get the data? And come on in. And if the answer to that is yes, then we'll take the next step. But hopefully that CSV file won't be a huge chunk for you guys to just sort of basically just almost just write out what the fields are and the order in which they need to go. And we'll see if we can generate the port exactly the way you give us. And that way, when you build the interface, we'll also have test files to be able to test the interface with too.
Right. Yeah.
Is everybody sort of on the same page that I'm thinking?
You explained it well, Andy.
Yeah, and we had put together, I think I'm interpreting this correctly, essentially about 2 to 4 days worth of work to get some kind of CSV import functionality available, right? And so what you're saying is let's get the schema right, make sure we have that, and then go back to all the institutions, ask them to generate that, and then we already know that will work once we go to import it. One file format across all of the organizations. And we can, potentially look, beyond just this specification too, right? I mean, if wasn't sure initially, this import functionality, how many specifications would work. But I mean, ultimately, we're just talking about, importing a database and mapping, right? So it could be more than just this data set. And then we had estimated essentially for each institution some work, trying to work with the file. There could be an issue or something like that. And then we had put that as basically being about a day per institution. If there were some number of institutions, presumably there'd be less time spent for each one. But that's essentially just putting together the high level amount of work. That's what we had put together.
Yeah, and I would even say I would like to not tell every institution that not necessarily get data from every institution. We'll handpick a few to begin with to see, because like everything else, people are going to be like, oh. The other day I was looking for something in the operating room. They said, we don't have that. I'm like, I used it yesterday. They're like, we don't have it. I'm like, no, you don't know where it is. That's a difference. And so these institutions will be like, we can't generate a report like that. It's like, no, you don't know how to do it. It doesn't mean you can't do it. You need to do your research. You need to figure out the people that understand how the system works, generate the report. This is what it looks like. Here are the 8 other institutions that have done it successfully. We'll help you out. We'll have our registrar talk to your registrar. And here's the other thing. There's a lot of institutions, but there's only Greg, is it 3 vendors right now?
Yeah,
There's only
we're actually
3
selecting a
vendors.
vendor right now. So there's only 3 vendors that make the software that's
Right.
used.
So
That's
all
what I was
the
going to say. We probably just
institutions,
need to figure out, do all 3 of those work to the
right?
crosswalk?
All 3, every institution boils down to only 3 options to generate the reports. So it's even easier because if you've done it at one, if you did it at the place that's already using Trauma One, they have Trauma One. Every other institution that uses Trauma One, you actually can share reports. And so hopefully you don't even have to do, so hopefully it'll go a little bit smoother from that standpoint too.
In my experience getting data from different organizations, even if you give them the format, there's always going to be some difference somewhere along the line, which is just from our own planning purposes. We, assume that each one will require some engineer to be available, on call, responsive, etc. Um, yeah,
We found that
I think
out
it's
with
just
the
good from
dot
a
phrase
planning.
uploader tool, how much differences how many differences there are in Epic from place to place. What other questions you guys have for us?
Well, for the file import, was there more than just this specification? Because I mean, ultimately, you could look at more. If this gets the most bang for the buck, great. I wasn't sure if there were other database files to potentially, look at for being able to import them.
Well,
Was there
so
anything else?
yeah, I mean, well, so we've kind of talked about this in the past that like had talked about sort of the dot phrase and like the cut and paste out of Epic, but ideally similar to this, if Epic could generate a report that had some of the other 123 fields on it that we needed because it's in there. So for example, pain level on a day, oxygen requirements per day, any one of these things, if we could generate reports out of Epic or out of the electronic medical record, it would use a similar process potentially to upload. Unfortunately, I don't think we're there yet in terms of the medical records playing house with us to generate those reports. I've played a little bit on the back end of Epic to try and do some things, but not had success. But that's sort of the other alternative is if we could get some of that bigger data upload to fill in some of those other fields.
The other thing we've talked about, is we're all using this quality of life survey instrument that I just had a bunch of patients in the office today. So I give them a piece of paper that they fill out. My medical assistant transcribes that into Epic and puts it in there electronically. But maybe another thing we look at in the future is a way that we could hand them an iPad or something. It goes directly into the SID database somehow. But I think as a committee we've discussed that this is kind of the first step we would like to take the CSV importer. I think it's probably the low-hanging fruit that will help the most of us and get us the most bang for the buck.
Sorry, Nadia and Chris, can I just put you guys on the a little
Yes,
bit on
please.
hot seat for a second? So, what Greg is talking about, we already have that survey that's in there. There's already a survey in SID for outpatient stuff that we could fill out, and you can have multiple on there. So, from a logistics standpoint, if we had a different form, would it be better to have that form be built into SID? Or alternatively, it's really easy to do this in REDCap, and we could even centralize it because we have a REDCap from CWIS, and then people could upload those results in batch format. What do you think is realistically, I mean, is it apples to apples? Is it more work? Is it better flow to just put it all within SID? Like for a long-term I mean, I don't think this isn't like the immediate project, but it kind of overlaps because if we did it through REDCap, it would work in a similar fashion to what we're talking about here.
A lot of organizations use RedCap as a, augmented data store and workflow system of various kinds. So, you could do it that way. Architecturally, I'm trying to sort through if that's really the best right now. I feel like I'd want to ask some more questions and think about it a bit more. Nadia, do you have any hot takes on that?
No, I want to look into this capability, Andy. I want to, essentially go and find where it is, what fields it's taking, and how it is implemented in the application before I can,
Yeah,
offer.
and the thing about it is, no matter what that, sorry, I'm just pulling it up myself. No matter how you look at it, that that data set is that would have to be upgraded because the new tool is different. It has quite a bit more information than this one does.
So the survey data set would
Yeah,
have to be upgraded.
yeah, it's a survey. Um, it's a survey tool.
And I take it shares fields with this TQuip data set. So you're sort of trying to,
No,
no, it does.
no,
Okay.
there's no nothing like this
Okay.
in the TQuip data field. So it's in the follow-up visits. It's in the follow-up visits when you put a visit date in. It it has a quality of life survey.
Okay.
So if you do an outpatient visit, if there's a quality of life survey as part of that outpatient visit, and
And
that's where that shows up.
and what do you want to do with this survey? What is your hope?
So the goal is going to be eventually to convert to the new version of the survey that has been verified. It's called CQUAL, and
Okay, gotcha.
potentially allow people to either be emailed a link to it and they can fill it out and it will automatically go into their data record, or be able to pull it up for them on an iPad and have them fill it out. So Greg, you can do that now, by the way.
So
You log
part
into
of this
SID.
work was connected to part of what you guys priced out for the PCORI,
Right.
just to connect those dots. Remember how we were looking at having like surveys connect to records and that whole thing? This is a little different because that one had those like, I don't think they were daily surveys, right, Dr. Dobin? Maybe they were
No, but
weekly
there
surveys.
were multiple automatic timed
Right, but they went
surveys.
out, right. They
These
were
are something
timed,
different.
right. This is like 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, like, they're
With the visit.
right.
I just put the instrument in the chat.
But they would be so kind of like what you were
Got it.
looking at for Picori. So as you're pricing that out, or as you're looking at it, you may want to look back to that one that we were working on with Dr. Cardico, because they would be related. Different, I mean, different surveys, different structure, but similar a little bit, maybe in the technology that you'd be building. I don't know, just in case that helps at all.
Okay. I pulled it down. I see. This is the official vetted one.
Yeah, this is the new version. The version that you just got was not
Mm-hmm.
available when we built SID. This is just completed, just published data.
Okay. So what
So it should be replacing the one that's in there with this.
okay. So what we can do is we'll also look to see how this maps onto what's there. And it might be a pretty close match, or it might, you know, require some work.
I'm going with the latter.
So,
Did you know that when you started working with trauma surgeons that nothing is easy?
Yeah, I think to that what you said that one time. Every time you think you're having a bad day, not as bad as my patient. So
That's right. That's right.
Um, from a time perspective, I know we jumped right into TQuip and the import. We were also discussing earlier to give Sarah, you had mentioned just an overall update. Do we still have time for that? Are you good to jump into
Yeah,
that?
you guys are our meeting. I mean, this chatting with you guys is what we have. So I'd
Okay.
love
Yeah,
for you
we
guys to explain the different security stuff and things like that because my descriptions are inadequate.
yeah, and we were going to be more prepared for our Thursday meeting with, an update to everything. Nadia, can I ask you to go give a rundown of the different parts and components and everything?
Sure. Okay, so there were three sort of main thrusts. One, we signed you up for SendGrid, and that has now been hooked up to use the proper domain for SendGrid for like password resets and things like that whenever the SID application is running everything. Then, then we also deploy to staging. So that means whenever we do these changes, right? So for example, if we're updating the survey application, we will deploy to staging first, then our QA people will QA, you can go play around with it, and then we will deploy to production. We also deploy to what I'm calling, if you recall, Sarah, we had the alternate production where everything we've set up now is much more press a button and the system gets updated, not a very manual process or a repeatable process. So we set up what I am calling alternate production. And what remains to be done now is to go copy data from the real production to the alternate productions database and to repoint and say, okay, this is the real production. So that is what remains. But you can, if you're using the alternate production or the staging, you could reset your password. One more thing we discovered is that, well, we didn't discover it, but we couldn't ignore it any longer, is if you were resetting your password, it would email you a password in plain text. And that's not very good nowadays, very frowned upon. So now we pivoted and you now get a one-time password to go reset your password with. So you've joined the 21st century with that too. Um, so all these things are ready. They are waiting to be officially shipped and for that to become your real SID. When that is done, we will let the Jonathan setup run still in parallel until we're like, sure, sure, and then we will quietly disassemble it.
Yeah, and just from a next step perspective, we'd like to bring the system down for about 5 hours. And so we just want to figure out what time to do that. And then basically we'll do all the database migration and everything into that window. It's possible it's going to be a lot less time than that. You've expressed to us that that would be okay. There are certain businesses where that's like essentially unacceptable, and we would need a different plan for that, and that's okay too. Just takes a lot more time and energy to plan around something like that. So if you can bear, several hours of downtime, not use the system, we would be able to basically do this. And so one of the aspects that Nadia had mentioned, we're now able to rebuild the entire system on all new infrastructure, not using anything that was previously done by the previous developer. So that allows us to basically, run a good software development lifecycle process. So anytime we do changes, we basically will redeploy to brand new, essentially virtual hardware, and run, a much better process, and a good QA process whenever we do these deployments. So we're anxious to cut over, because we've been kind of afraid to touch the other box, too much, right? So after this, we'll have a lot more confidence that, everything is essentially, built from scratch, and that we have a good handle on it.
Quick question. Can you guys just because all the users have emails that are assigned to them. So can you guys just send a mass email to all users that says like at this date and time the system will be unavailable for
Right.
5 hours? Other
That's
than
what I was
what's
gonna say. You guys pick the time and I'll just email everyone and say it's down this day and people will work around it.
right. And I don't disagree, Sarah, but it might be nice because God forbid there's some user that you don't like, the centers, but if there's a user in the
Oh
system.
no, I can pull the whole list. I have access to
Right.
that list now.
Okay,
Of
great.
anyone
So
who
then I
has
just send an
anyone that
email.
has a username and a password, I have that now.
So I would just,
So that's
I,
cool.
I would send an
Yeah.
email that there's a date and time. You guys tell us.
Yeah, you pick it.
You pick
What
it.
you want.
Sarah
I
will
don't think
send
the
two.
time matters
And
since we have
after that,
users around
and
the
after
world,
that,
so it doesn't really
for
matter.
those of you that are old enough.
Yes. Thank you.
So
Thank you
that's
for
how
a friend's reference. Every Monday should include a friend's reference. I appreciate that.
Okay, well,
Yes.
we'll coordinate that with you, and yeah,
Yeah.
once you, we'll send you some dates, and then once you pick, we'll get
What's your
on.
favorite number? And that'll be the day of the month. We'll do it that day.
Sounds good. We
79.
have
Okay, it's never getting done. Darn it.
we also, with the setup of this staging environment, I know that there was always, previously there was two environments for essentially a demo environment. So we might want to, figure out some solution for the demo environment, or if you can use the staging environment, that type of thing.
I believe Shelley's asking if we could choose a weekend day.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
For the downtime, right, that we were talking about for you guys for when you take the system down.
Shelly, how about we're East Coast, so how about we choose the other thing is we could do an East Coast time that is that you guys are hopefully snug in your bed too. That's the other thing. If they do an early morning East Coast time, even day of the week, by the time they get up and running, you'll just be climbing out of bed.
That will work.
I'm sorry. Was the suggestion to do early morning East Coast time?
Right. You guys are all East
What
Coast,
time is that in
right?
Australia? I mean, it's going to be bad for somebody, whatever time we
It's
pick.
true.
So I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and we have 3 new sites now in Italy. So no matter what, someone will be inconvenienced. So
Just let us know the time so people are aware in advance. I think that's all that matters.
Okay, thanks. All right, we'll come back to you on that. I also wanted to, I know we're near the end of time. I wanted to mention the comments about the staging environment and the ability to demo. So, we can talk more about that on Wednesday. The topic of RedCap also came up. So, we do have access to that instance, and we have been looking at the documentation and figuring out what we would need to do. Since the instance, from what we have assessed, the email isn't working on it. It's also on an old, essentially Linux EC2 box. And so trying to get essentially on a modern EC2 instance, a modern Amazon instance, with the latest version of RedCap and migrate that data over, it are the steps that we are looking and planning to do. And so if there was ever any change on your end that you didn't want us to continue looking into that or whatever, but that was described as like the next thing that we would do after we launched SID. So yeah, are we still good to continue with that plan?
Sarah, that's the Society Red Cap.
yes,
Okay.
just figuring out how we get the data from there to there. Because like we're using RedCap for the frail study. So any opportunities we have to move data from one to the other would be good.
Right. As opposed to like just scrapping the data and not having it in the new instance. Right.
Well,
Yep.
or saving it in RedCap but not having it. You know what I mean? It makes sense to migrate it if we can.
Right. So I think we
Yeah.
can migrate it for sure into the newer version of RedCap. And just to double check, you weren't talking about migrating it into SID as well, were you?
No,
wherever
No.
possible. I mean, yeah.
no. The
Okay.
RedCap data is not being migrated into SID.
All right. I didn't think so. Just checking.
Yeah.
Sorry, that
all
was
right.
yeah.
Yeah, and then the next on the big list was basically rapid input from there, and we're already sort of talking about that as well. So I feel like we're close to being on our way. Feeling
Yes,
good.
I think this first one, so the idea is to figure out how much this version of rapid input will cost and then take that to the board, get them to approve that, and then they'll decide, then we can decide from there, like what else we can afford and when, right? And so this is kind of that first step.
Right. So TQuip is basically now that rapid input,
That's
item,
like
right?
that line that has like the CSV thing, right? I mean,
Hmm.
but we were kind of fleshing out like what does that mean? Like where would the data come from? Or like where would the CSV come from? What CSV are
Yeah.
we using? Like that whole thing when we were just kind of using that as like a placeholder for like ish
Hmm.
CSV. That's
Yep.
now that's getting some meat on the bones.
Yep. Yeah. We had swag that basically as like 4 to 8K, and then 1 to 2,000 per institution that we had to like debug and look into. That was the framework, but I'm happy to send you like
Yeah.
package
Just
that
if
up
you still think
however you
that,
like.
like, if you think that still fits kind of what you're thinking, then we can go over that on Thursday. Like, if that still seems like it's a realistic number, now that you've seen it and you heard all the expectations that the team has, and
Yeah. So
so
thanks for the opportunity to double check on that. We'll take that. And
thanks.
yeah, feel good about
Good.
whatever we produced in general. So, but yeah, thank you for that.
Excellent. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a huge improvement for people that have been manually putting all that in. So it's gonna be awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here and for the update and for your work.
Our pleasure. Yeah. Thank you. Great to work on all this and
Pleasure.
solution with everybody.
Thanks. Good to see everyone.
Good to see
Yeah.
you
Good to
all.
see you.
Take care.